Cory, thank
Yes,
you so
sir.
much for joining me today. Excited to have you on.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
One of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of clubs as I get more conversations is around this element of college support. So obviously you specialize in this area as well. The first question I have for you is around responsibilities of clubs when it comes to information and support. I suppose a broad question would be, what is the responsibility of the club, and where do you start there?
Sure. So I think this, in all honesty, this is probably the most convoluted, difficult question to answer, just because one, clubs are so different. Two, the level of play is different. Three, the amount of time any given college recruitment director or coach has to kind of put forth in helping these kids varies, drastically all over the country. And even within Surf Nation, obviously, we have different type of clubs. So the easiest way, I think, for college coaches and club directors, college recruitment directors to help players is really just kind of educate them as much as possible. Like there is, and I am happy to provide this for you. I think I've sent you a couple things along the way. Basically just like a calendar for any course of any given year and all 4 years of high school that college coaches have to follow, that players have to follow, that the recruiting guidelines kind of stick to. And within those guidelines, it does help lead college recruitment directors down kind of a path of the best way to help kids. So is there one given answer of what the best thing they can do is? Not really, because again, it's going to be very reactionary, which is part of the problem of kind of the college recruitment process, which we'll get into a little bit later. But if college recruitment directors can really just focus on the educational side of things and kind of that yearly, monthly, daily calendar and kind of put kids on the right path, that's probably the best, high level way to kind of get your college recruitment program going within any given club.
Getting the calendar going, and then from a club side, you always hear this with different tactical stuff. When should you implement this? So is it high school? As soon as the kids are in high school, should the club directors be looking at this?
Sure. So this is where club directors really just need to be honest with their level of play within their club. Because to be very straightforward with you, if you have a high level ECNL or MLS Next or GA, DA club, some kids are really starting as early as 7th and 8th grade. Now, will a college recruitment director really need to guide them at that point? Probably not, because it's just hey, this is a magnificent player, and they're probably just starting like the ID camps, just getting looks from players. Like most of the time, if you're that young, there's kind of a stigma associated with it. There's a hype around it, and they're kind of handling the process themselves. But as you kind of jump down from, again, those high levels all the way down to, kids that are probably playing low D3, low D2, you really just kind of have to gauge that. And unfortunately, the answer can be as early as 7th grade. But if we want the straightforward vast majority of kids in this country, girls probably should be starting at the end of their freshman into their sophomore year. Boys should be within 6 months to a year after that. And the sole reason is boys just develop later physically than girls do. So they tend to get recruited a little bit later. So if you have something in place by the end of their freshman year, you're having at least, seminar number 1 by the end of the freshman year into your sophomore year, you're usually about right for the vast majority of clubs and players in the country.
A common challenge that a lot of clubs face is whenever parents and obviously the process, there's quite a social element of the process as well, where players on the team get recruited and maybe another player isn't getting any looks. So how can a club or a coach help the players who are not getting heavily recruited at an early stage or even a later stage?
Sure. So I'm gonna actually present your question in a different way that may that the answer is going to be the same. So the short version is if you have a player or part of a team or a group of players within a team that happen to be getting recruited earlier than others, the only difference is the players that may not simply just have to be a little bit more proactive. Those are going to be the ones that are going to talk to a person like me, talk more to your club director, attend ID camps a little bit more on a regular basis, be more communicative with with those college coaches, the same question can be worded differently. It's kind of like, okay, I live in Idaho and we don't have an ECNL club that we're associated with. So how can I get recruited, out in this area because I don't have that high level club? And my answer is the same. You really just need to take that more proactive approach. Kids can get recruited to the same school at the same time with the same scholarships, but one may be someone who was just found on the soccer field during a tournament or showcase, and the other one has spent the last 6 months being highly proactive as far as communicating with those coaches, going to ID camps, that sort of thing. So if you are that kid that's not necessarily getting that, immediate like recruitment request, kind of all those emails, don't feel bad about it. It's just a little bit of a different path that you're going to have to take.
Do you think that message gets lost slightly about the proactive in terms of reaching out to colleges? I don't hear that a lot, but it's very, very important.
So I'm going to interject and say, anybody watching this, stick around till the end of this video, because this is the exact topic that we are going to cover. And the truth is that the problem is this. I use two phrases when I talk to college recruitment directors, clubs, parents, whatever. Even the best clubs in the world, even the best college recruitment directors, even the ones that think they have a good grasp on college recruitment, they do it in a very reactionary approach. They have good players and they're hoping that they get emails from college coaches. If we can kind of switch the mentality and say there is a need for being more proactive, the college recruitment process, yes, falls on the player's hands a little bit more in the player's hands, but the results are going to be tenfold of what you were doing if you were just sitting around and waiting. So there's no question about it. One of the seminars for college recruitment directors should be how to communicate with the college coach, when to do it in that timeline, how to do it pre-tournament, how to do it post-tournament, what you're allowed to talk about at the tournament, the restrictions, the guidelines. So I'm willing to bet, and this is somewhat of an arbitrary number, but kids would get recruited 50% more of the time, or 50% better in better colleges if they just took a more proactive approach. And yes, it gets lost. It's we want everything kind of done for us. We want coaches hopefully to reach out with us. It just doesn't work that way anymore. There is the landscape is too broad. The high level leagues are spread out so much that college coaches just don't have the time to go find every player in the that they can and spend the money in the right way, spend the travel in the right way. Taking a proactive approach is absolutely the key to what this process has evolved to over these past 10 years.
All right, moves us along nicely then. The role of the parents, how involved should they be? When should they maybe start moving in different directions, and kind of talk us through that process?
Sure. So the simple, straightforward answer is the least amount a parent can be involved, the better. And really? The problem with that statement is that then requires the player to actually have the ability to communicate, the desire to go out and do the research, the willingness to talk to coaches when that opportunity presents itself. The parents are absolutely going to get involved in the decision-making process. And of course, they can be in the background helping their kids sort through schools, helping them plan ID camps, all that sort of stuff. That's absolutely something a parent should do. It's twofold. Should they be the front lines of the communication? Absolutely not. Should they be on the back end helping with the organization, the process, the understanding of financials? Absolutely. So when should they get involved? The second a player wants to start, considering playing in college. But it's the role that is the part that is important. There's not a single college coach out there that wants to have the majority of their conversations with the parent. Yeah.
And maybe formalize the process slightly so they check in every now. Have you emailed X amount of coaches?
100%. Like I said, they can do as much as they're willing to do on the back end. And they're obviously an adult. They're going to be more organized. They're going to be kind of, helping prod the kid a little bit, moving along. I mean, welcome to teenagehood and just, kids at that age in general. So 100% on the back end, as far as the organization, feel free. It's the front end that always gets a little bit questionable on how much they're involved.
Well, let's stay on this, and let's say that a parent is listening to this and saying, oh, wow, it might be beneficial if I backed off a little bit. Give us an example, or at what stage do you think that the parents should go, oh, all right, they need to start doing this themselves a little bit?
Again, to keep it simple and then, broaden the answer a little bit, the second the player starts to communicate with a college coach, the parent should back off. Everything up until that moment, everything as far as the organizational side, the planning of ID camps, the making sure there's, emails are sent out and all that sort of stuff. But the second a kid is actually communicating with the college coach, again, via email, on the phone, via text when it's allowed, at a tournament, follow up to an ID camp, at an ID camp, the parent should be completely backed off. And yes, that's going to involve the parent kind of helping the player a little bit, understand, what would be helpful to say in any given situation. But that's the big picture. I mean, again, the parent could be doing 70, 80% of the work on the back end as long as the player is bought in and believes in it. But on the front end, when it's actually putting their face with the name for a college coach, the player has to do it all.
Yeah, it's interesting because that parent is going to be involved in that visit. Obviously, they're driving them there and they're getting the tour, and it's kind of a dual experience. So yes, going in and sitting with your coach, who is probably closer to the age range of the parent, it's going to take an awareness and a bit of education around, okay, maybe that's a difficult context for a 14, 15-year-old to inject themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, but college coaches are also aware of it. They're not going to sit down and say, okay, how much are you willing to spend if you don't get this scholarship? You know what I mean? Like, those aren't going to be the questions they're having with the kid. They want us to understand their personality. They want to understand their goals. They want to understand their strengths and weaknesses on the field. The college coach has done this so many times that they'll literally sit in the room and stare at the player. And when I want to ask a question for a parent to get involved, they'll direct it at the parent. You know what I mean? I mean, so a parent absolutely can sit in on those conversations and be involved, but be prepared for your player to lead the way as best as he possibly can. And again, I tell players and parents this all the time. The college coach will lead the conversation. He will ask questions. He will take that conversation where he wants it to go. He's done it so many times. He knows what he's trying to get out of it. So when he directs questions at the player, let the player answer them. When he directs questions at the parent, let the parent answer them.
Whenever the young player is starting to set targets and objectives, obviously there's a reality in that there that UCLA, Stanford, whatever it is, Penn State. But then again, it's good to set high goals. So how do you balance and navigate around too high or being realistic with that?
Sure. So this is a topic you and I may have a conversation with on a later date, but this is a perfect scenario where the conversation about ID camps comes in. Okay. So the vast majority of universities of colleges, D1 all the way down to NAIA, even down to JUCO colleges, they will have their own ID camp, right? It's their coaching staff with players that have either signed up or they've invited. And the difficult part about that is if you don't get a response from a coach immediately afterwards, you're lost in la la land going, what did I do right or wrong, whatever it happens to be. There are a bunch of companies out there that used to be a little bit more of a money grab. And let's be honest, they are still a little bit now too. But it's a third-party company that will organize ID camps that will have a few D1 schools, a few D2 schools, a few D3 schools, and they're all in a geographical location. And the one thing that I find those types of camp beneficial for is to gauge where you're at. Because if you go there and you're getting a whole bunch of responses from the D1, you kind of know you're probably playing at that level. If most of your responses are D2 and D3, that's okay. You're probably playing at that level. Now, can that change over the course of 4 years? Absolutely. But really, really being kind of like honest with yourself about, okay, I need third parties. I need coaches. I need even my own club coaches to kind of help me understand where I'm at is incredibly important. And those ID camps I find incredibly beneficial, especially at the early stages of high school.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes ID camps get because of there's 500 kids. And again, the ratio of scholarships offered is always going to be extremely low. But it does give you an opportunity to see coaches work, to feel about the campus. And there's a lot of advantages there as well.
No question about it. I mean, just even understanding the level of play. I mean, again, the example I gave earlier. You're playing in Idaho and you're not on an ECNL team. Going to a couple ID camps will open your eyes to kind of what that ability level really is. You know, I mean, you're most of the time you're very used to playing against your level of competitiveness, and attending ID camps does have that option to kind of show you what everything is out there that you could kind of be playing at the different levels.
All right, as parents start to get through the process then and they start to looking at visits, when would be the time that you think that you need to start taking official or unofficial visits, or do you wait for the school to try to lead you in that, or what's the best way?
Yeah, so there are unofficial visits and there are official visits. And the unofficial visits are usually a little bit more organized by the parent, by the player within the family. They're reaching out and a college coach says, sure, come by and visit, and he'll even set up a tour for you, whatever it happens to be. Official visit is usually either after you've committed or you're very close to committed. So starting to handle those processes, starting to consider those, obviously you're more in control of the unofficial visit ones. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit later about narrowing down schools, but there's 3,500 universities in the country that have soccer programs. When you've narrowed it down to 10 or 15, which can be very late in the process, that is the simple answer on the time frame when you should be looking to do ID camps. I wouldn't do unofficial visits. I wouldn't just start doing unofficial visits for no reason. Now, an unofficial visit again has to be recorded by the coach. There is actually restrictions as far as how many you can do. Simply going to visit the campus and walking around and watching a soccer game, that's a whole other conversation in itself. So you can do that as many times as you want, as your budget allows, as time allows, whatever it happens to be. But you're really not going to be doing those until you've probably started getting some offers and you know kind of the range that you're in about where you might be playing. I mean, that's kind of the time frame to do it. And again, to simplify it, it's late sophomore year into junior year for girls, and probably about the same time frame, maybe again 6 months later for boys.
As coaches then who are in this space, and maybe they're just getting used to the space and they're only in it a couple of years, but their database or connection of coaches isn't that extreme, and I'm sure there's coaches, especially some of the clubs in the surf, who have 50 coaches on speed dial probably every hour.
Yep.
But some aren't. And then I guess, how would you advise coaches who are working at this level to try and grow that and try to get, maximize the opportunity for the players?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough question. And I'm going to have to say, I assume the reason why you and I are sitting down doing this is for that exact reason, starting to help those coaches, help those clubs, help those club directors, kind of get a feel for how this process should work. And just like anything else, the internet has a plethora of information. Like, I mean, you can go type in how to handle college soccer recruitment. What is the timeline? And it'll pop up. I mean, you do kind of have to be proactive. We ask these kids to be proactive in their college search. If you're a coach that wants to help in that manner, you've got to kind of do the same, but I'll help you out a little bit as to not to be concerned. Getting a player recruited, you're probably only talking about maybe a 10-20% advantage if you are that type of coach that has those 50 coaches on speed dial. I mean, it really still, unfortunately, does come down to the player. It comes down to the ability level. There's, in the 10 years I've been doing this, I've probably heard, a half a dozen scenarios where the club coach has actually talked the college coach into taking the player. It just doesn't happen that often, so having faith in the process a little bit and your ability to kind of go do that due diligence to help your players out. It takes a little bit of work to do it, but don't feel like you're behind the ball just because you don't have all those connections. It's just going to require you to kind of like go out and put in the hours to understand how the process works.
Probably missed the one as well, where the expectations should be also on the side of scholarships. And I know there's a ruling last week, and I don't know the exact details, so I'm not going to go. You can maybe extend on a little bit, but now roster sizes are getting bigger, money's coming into it. Is it still relatively unrealistic to expect full rides the most part?
So that answer has changed drastically in the course of the last couple of weeks. I'm the best answer basically is the ability to attain a scholarship. The probability of it hasn't changed. The amount of that scholarship might have changed. Like that's the way to kind of think about it. I mean, all of a sudden, just because, a whole bunch of more full rides are given doesn't mean the level of play at any given university is going to change. You're still going to have your top universities. The difference, of course, is now, if a kid if saying, oh, wow, I could go play at UCLA, or I could go play at UMass, and I want to stay at UMass, and I can get a full ride one place or the other, that may change their decision a little bit. But I don't think the actual level of play is going to change, meaning your ability to still go out and play at a college is going to be the same. That won't have changed drastically. The money involved might have changed a little bit, but that, as far as I'm concerned, should never be your guiding factor. And again, that's something we'll talk more about at the end of this conversation, is if you're solely based on the whole money side of things, it's just not going to be a good experience to begin with.
Do you think that's changing now with the portal? Do you think now people are kind of looking and saying, well, if it doesn't work out there, I might keep my options open? Or how does that landscape look from your lens?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to take this from a different perspective. One of the most difficult parts about this process, and that kind of like reactionary philosophy that I gave, is if you are not doing the work up front, most of the time, these kids that are kind of like that, low level D1, they may get one offer from one D1 university and they go, oh crap, I want to go D1. I don't care what it is. I don't know what the school's all about, but that's where I'm going. And you find 50, 60, 70% of the time, 2 years later, that kid's transferring, so I think there will be more transfers and more considerations as far as, hey, where do I want to go and what my options are down in the future. But again, my whole philosophy in this entire concept, and again, like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit later, is I think kids just in general need to be more proactive in their college search, because especially now with these scholarships offers changing, is if you go to a school that you have researched and you have done your due diligence as far as the majors and what you're going to do after school and the size of the school and the athletic program outside of soccer, does that fit what you're looking for in a college experience? Like, if you've done all that research, you're probably setting yourself up for success for the 4 years anyway, and of course you're basing a 4-year decision off of what might be 10 conversations. And that's hard, whether you're including the soccer side of things or not. Kids that aren't even going to play, athletics, play a sport in college, they still have to go through that same process. And the difference is most of the time, kids that aren't playing athletics have done their due diligence for the type of school that they want to go to. I wish kids that were playing in soccer did that same type of research, so that once they find that fit, it's actually a good fit for them.
Something we're seeing a lot in the landscape as well at the minute is VO. There's cameras, videos for the games. Players can get access to all their clips. What should they be doing with that? How can that help?
Yeah, so there's no question about it. Having a decent highlight reel is important nowadays. It goes back to my answer before about coaches just don't have the time, the money, the availability, the schedule, options to go see every single player that emails them, or even every single player that has sent them a good highlight reel. So having those highlight reel, and again, I'm going to, throw out a cheat code right now. Go on to the websites Fiverr or Upwork or, any of those little like third party task companies, and you'll find someone that'll do a highlight reel for you for $200 get it done in 4 days, as long as you have the clips for them and their quality, so huge cheat code. You don't have to find this company that does these amazing highlight reels, but they're important. So getting your clips in line, making sure you have enough of them. And I'm going to throw out one thing. A highlight reel has to be the best of the best of what you're capable of doing. I would rather have a highlight clip reel be 30 seconds long with 8 clips of perfection than a minute and a half long where a third of the clips are like, oh, I made a bad trap, but then I recovered and played a beautiful pass. you don't want the coach to think you make mistakes ever, right? You know what I mean? I mean, like the coach is looking at it going, this is the best of the best that this player has. And if there are mistakes in here, that means they didn't have that many amazing scenarios. So be very, very selective in what you choose to be involved in your highlight reel. And there are so many companies out there that'll do them for relatively cheap nowadays and with great quality. So just go do that research.
Yeah, the coach's role, I guess, once they commit, does the coach have a responsibility to update or kind of keep that conversation, that communication going? I guess from a parent, from a player standpoint, from a club coach standpoint, how does that space operate?
So you mean once the actual player commits to a college?
Yeah.
So the good news about that is that commitments are binding, and they're more restrictive on the university side than on the player side. Meaning, once you've committed, there is no backing out as far as the university is concerned. A player could still decide to back out. A player could still decide to quit in year number one. But as long as you have committed and you are actively doing what is needed as far as that program is concerned, they are binded to continue with your spot on the team. So to answer your question it's again, if I'm the college coach, I would love a player that, again, continues to be informative, continues to kind of help me understand what we're going through in our senior year, how well we did in a recent tournament, the fact that they came and watched one of our college games. Like, it just proves that there's a quality of kid there, quality of player that goes beyond the field. And so the actual club coach doesn't have a whole lot to do after that point. I mean, once you've committed, you should be proud of yourself and, get all the pictures and put it on your club webpage and Instagram. Like, there's no question about it. But as far as actually the player's concerned, you've done your job up until that point. But I mean, I don't want to discount, like there's enough to say in hey, like giving the college coach a quick call saying, hey, the player just did really well this last tournament, scored 3 goals. Sure. But if I'm going to spend time as a club director or a coach, I'm going to spend it prior to commitment as opposed to after commitment.
All right, let's talk about college soccer pathway.
Okay.
Let's get stuck into that there and talk about how, I mean, what stage of the process are you starting to help clubs and more specifics around that, I guess?
So this conversation is going to kind of go in 2 different directions. The little bit of background for everybody, and Gary might put this in the info about this conversation. But I've been a club coach for 25 years. I coached 4 years in college in the DC area, George Mason and at GW. For the last 10 years, I've been heavily involved in the college recruitment side. And during that time, and just, it was at FC Virginia. It's a predominantly strength girls club out in the DC area. And during that time, I was actually always coaching the second team players. We were in ECNL for a while, and then we switched over to the girls Academy, the DA, and then we switched down over to the GA, So I was always having these second teams. But the last 4 years that we were there, I had just as many players on my second team go off and play in college as the first team did. We both graduated 18 seniors. They had 11. I had 11 for the last year that I was there. Now, of course, those players are going off and playing at Duke and North Carolina, and mine might be, low end D1, D3, sure, no question about it. But the level of play in general, from low D1 to high D3, is so convoluted nowadays. Like, my first comment is I don't think you should necessarily be, oh my God, I want to go D1. That's the only good option for me. There's so many kids out there. I'd say the majority of kids out there are actually better suited for D3 just as far as college experience is concerned. Sorry, that was a terrible answer to a question that you didn't ask, but a little bit of a background. So during these last 10 years, I was helping obviously those players. And again, I was helping those players that were more likely to need to take a proactive approach. They weren't the ones just getting emailed left and right by high-end schools. So during that time, I kind of built a process that goes back to the calendar that I mentioned at the beginning of, hey, this is what you should be doing in your freshman year. This is how you should communicate. This is what you should be doing in your sophomore year. These are the type of ID camps you're going to. So I've started a little consulting company that helps those players kind of go through that. And, there's big mass companies, the NCSA, Captain U, Recruit School. There's a couple of them out there that are such big companies that they just are like, upload your highlight reel and we'll get you in touch with coaches, and they do some education. And there's an advantage to those. But the little company that I'm doing is much more interactive. I'm talking to the kids on a daily or weekly basis, especially once they hit those recruitable couple years. I'm interacting with them and just kind of guiding them. So I have two people that I work with. Each of us have about 30 players that we're working with throughout the country. And we're kind of maxed out on the number of players that we can do, but it rotates every year. I mentioned that because CSP and those type of recruitment companies out there, that are helping kids, they're popping up all over the place. So if that's something that you think you need, reach out to me. I can make recommendations if we don't have space, whatever it happens to be. The second part of this conversation that I kind of wanted to mention, and again, sorry for being long-winded, but I think this part is important, is about 2 years ago, we started building an app. And this app is taking on the thought process that gives the players the ability to take that more proactive approach. So they don't necessarily need to go sign up for one of those recruitment companies. So I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot because I'm giving some players a much more, hopefully many more players, this tool that gives them the opportunity to do all that research. So basically what we've done is we have collected the data from every university in the country, men's and women's. We've put it into this intuitive like map format. And you can sort all these universities by size of the college, division, conference. We even go into academics. You can sort by majors. So if you got a major that you're thinking about, you can find all of the schools on a map that give you these majors. You can create a list of all of the schools that are appealing to you, put them in a little section called My List, and then you can actually communicate directly with these college coaches from within the app. So we're giving the tools to all these players to be very, very proactive in their search. The second part of this, which almost more people have been attracted to, is we have collected the data for every single college ID camp in the country. And that's a bold statement, but if it is an individual college, we have every single ID camp that they put out, and it obviously recycles because the majority of them are during the summer. So the ones we have in the database right now are going to end, and we'll launch them for the spring and for next summer. Every single ID camp, and we have those sorted in a manner that you can filter as well. You can filter by geographical location. You can filter by division. You can filter by conference. So you can not only find the schools that you're interested in, but also find the ID camps that might be suited to what you're kind of looking for. And you can keep track and notes on each one, communicate with the coaches directly through that app. And it's really just a tool that we're kind of giving to players to allow them to take on that more proactive approach. So, Gary, again, I know that was the longest winded answer you ever asked for in your life, but I just wanted to kind of get it out. I'm sure parents watching this will have to stop and replay it because they're bored about 7 times. But hopefully this app is going to be an incredible tool for players going into this kind of like recruitment process who have no idea where to start. And that's where the vast majority of players are. And again, like I've talked about with Gary, we're going to be providing this tool to clubs as well. So a club director can call me and say, hey, we want to offer your app to all of our players, and we give them a huge club discount. And, so they can provide that. So if you're a player that's interested, it's basically called this College Soccer Pathway Mapping app. My Instagram is just at your Instagram, just College Soccer Pathway. Just go type that into Instagram. You can give us a follow and follow everything that's going on. We launch at the end of this month. And if you're a player that wants to use it by yourself, awesome. If you're a club director or a coach or a team manager that think it can be beneficial for your club or your team, whatever, feel free to reach out to us because we're also doing, like I said, discounts for the teams and the age groups and the clubs and the larger clubs, that sort of thing. So again, apologies for the long-winded answer, but we're pretty excited about it. We've got a really good response. We've got some pro players on board who are helping us market it on Instagram, and it's been a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah, it improves the level then of information that, like you said earlier, you can go, of course, like in anything today, you can go on Google, but yeah, you said with 3,500 coaches, 3,500 schools, that's going to take you a while on Google, isn't it?
No question. Yeah, I mean, me being very honest, every single piece of data that we have is available online. You could go do it yourself. The problem is that nobody does it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's in 17 different places. And another cool one that we've got, again, I wanted to mention this is like within the field of, coaches information, conference record, conference rank. We also have it broken down by players in each class. So you know how many freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors are, and players in each position, which can be very powerful information when you're thinking about what you want to go to. Right. So you pull up a single school, it's got all of this detailed information. And actually, Gary, can I share a screen with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So this is just one of the flyers that we've put out that is kind of informational. So you can see here, like, this is the map. This has every single school in the country on there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Can we zoom in a little bit there?
Oh, very good.
So it has every single school in the country. You can see down here where this says hidden by the phone is universities, and we have universities press right now. If you press this little button, ID camps, all of the ID camps in the country turn red, and like then you have all the ID camps there. Here is again the details screen, which shows you all of the information that you have, including tuition amounts. Is it a public or private university? Here's the top 3 majors at each school. Then all of the information about the team. And then, like I said, down here at the bottom, it shows, are there freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and graduate students? And again, I had to cut off the screen, but beneath that down here is the players in each position. And then again, this is just a mock-up of my list. So I've add to my list. You see this little button that says add to my list. It pops into my list. And again, you can't see it here, but there's a little button up in the top right-hand corner that just says notes. And if you click on notes, you can add notes like, oh, I contacted the college coach on June 19th. I need to follow up. And of course, these are all of these are clickable links. We've got the campus map if you ever do a visit. Here's the head coach bio information. There's actually now a little email button here that allows you to email the college coach directly from here. And again, then all of the detailed information. So the goal is you start using this map, you start to filter. You start looking at all this detailed information, and you start adding to my list. You may start day number 1 with 200 universities, and hopefully by the time you're in your recruitable years, sophomore, junior year, you've got it down to 20, and now you know who you're targeting. Now you know who you're taking that proactive approach for. So we're pretty excited about it. We've gotten a lot of good response. The main response has been, gosh, I wish I had that when I was being recruited, and I think there's no more positive reinforcement than that statement right there. So yeah, that's kind of what we got going on, and we're excited about it.
Fantastic. Congrats on that. That's amazing. That's going to make a big difference. I haven't seen that before, where it goes into that detail of getting it so quickly. And it allows you then to compare schools, right? And look alongside each other. And
And again, let's just say all of a sudden in your senior year, you've decided you want to be a business major. You can go back and you've got your list. You can start now sorting by business school, like that sort of thing. So it's very evolving. It helps with your organic search over the time. And that's kind of how we set it up to be beneficial to all these players.
Brilliant. Okay, great. So the parents and kids get on the Instagram College Soccer Pathway.
Yep.
And then
follow us.
And then, so for coaches that are, I suppose, introducing more college processes, and you've also got some support in that area too.
Yeah, no question. So I've got about 7 clubs that we're working with right now. 2 of them have committed to buying it for their entire club. And again, I just want to be very honest with you guys. If you're a club director, it's up to you. Do you want to, fit the bill and provide it for your club? Do you want to put some of the expense back on players? We're working with, the whole kind of gamut of different people that might be interested in. We're hoping for a September 1st launch. So for those of you that are just individuals that want to go find it, it'll be on the App Store, CS Pathway Soccer Recruitment app. Just go check it out. But we really believe that our vast majority of our customers will be club directors that are in that spot where they want to help their players out. And again, team managers might go, hey, we have one of the better teams in the club. The club is not necessarily, the rest of the teams are not necessarily in our same ability level. Let's just do it for our team, that sort of thing. So feel free to reach out for me. Again, if you check out the Instagram page, it's got all my contact info, but just for simplicity, it's just Cory, Cory, at cspathway.com, CSPATHWAY.com. Shoot me an email. I'll help any way I can, as well as, of course, I'm always open to answering questions like Gary and I ran through at the beginning of this. So feel free to reach out. I love my job. I'm very lucky.
Top class. You can tell that it's your passion. That's really cool. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. First class. Cory, thank you so much, and congrats on the success. Good luck with the launch, and hopefully this is the start of a few more conversations around college recruitment at SERF.
Gary, reach out anytime. I'll be happy to help.